Good morning to this sixth day review of COP-28, which is happening in Dubai. We have been continuously monitoring the developments and various happenings at Dubai. So this, I think, today, 6th December, it will end the first week of conference. So tomorrow on 7th December, it will be a rest day. Of course, today's events, we'll review that tomorrow. And on the 8th, it will be a rest day, even for us, because there is no, the COP itself is on a rest day. But alarmingly, I think now, as we are discussing climate change and climate actions, today, I think this 3 days, we are seeing cyclone impacting Chennai very severely. In fact, it has, in 2015, Chennai faced similar flooding. And I think again, this it seems eclipses whatever happened in 2015. And surprisingly, the storm usually fizzles out in 3 days as it moves inland. But I think it is still being active, and probably it will impact Andhra Pradesh more and probably Orissa. And here in Telangana, we are seeing a cloudy situation. Yesterday, there was a drizzle, but today it is just cloudy conditions. But this reminds us, this cyclone Michwang reminds us again and again that climate change is there, and people who deny there is a climate change and climate emergency, I think they need to sit up and understand what is happening. Usually in December, there will be cyclonic storms, but this kind of storm is not expected, was not expected. Now, coming to what happened in Dubai, COP-28. Yesterday, there were different themes, energy transition, energy and industry, and just transition and indigenous people. But when I looked at the events and the projections, I felt it was more like a technology fix day. Now you might know in COP-28, a lot of problems. Someone is coming up with a technology fix. So that means the emissions can continue, but this particular technology is going to fix the problem. So this kind of stream of thinking is there. And yesterday events, where this COP-28 Climate Innovation Forum, they organize events, and we could see how they are peddling solutions, technology solutions as cutting edge technologies, artificial intelligence, satellite technology, big data, clean energy, industrial decarbonization, low carbon hydrogen. Now, this low carbon hydrogen is being pushed as an alternative fuel, apart from nuclear energy, which we have been seeing in the past few days. And of course, technology innovation means Bill Gates will be there. And in fact, the company Breakthrough Energy is founded by Bill Gates, and they support a lot of ventures, in the name of innovative startups. I just remembered one innovative startup in the US. I think a few months back we heard about a tree cutting. Large, big trees were cut, and there was a furor, and then eventually people found out that the company which was doing was funded by Bill Gates. So the Bill Gates says, defends that. He says, we are cutting these trees and they are going to bury them so that we give back carbon to the soil. And he thinks this is one of the way technology methods of increasing soil carbon. Now that's what. But then what about the trees? You know, trees are not just carbon contained material. They provide shade, they cool, they have a lot of ecological services. So the sustainability of these kind of initiatives is always a question. So that's why we need to very closely see what are these cutting edge solutions and innovations which are being pushed, peddled in COP-28. And they say, importantly, uh, they held talks on a market system of financial incentives to close power plants in a cost effective way. I think this is another uh, issue which we need to discuss later part, because India is increasingly becoming sensitive to any initiative on coal. So I think we need to see. I'll come up with what happened there. Now coming to the theme-based events, yesterday there was this global cooling pledge signed by 60 countries. The text of the pledge is not yet released, but they are promising that by these technologies, 68% of the emissions will be reduced. So basically, this pledge was signed on the back of a report by UN Environment Program. They released a report on global cooling watch. That's the name of the report. I will discuss again that report in the later part. But again, you can see the second event or the outcome is 39 countries committed themselves to global market for hydrogen energy. Now, hydrogen is being pushed as a green fuel, and a lot of investments are being, made in that sector. But scientists, especially one Dr. Babura, who retired from IACT, he tells us that hydrogen is not at all a green fuel, and in fact, most of the whatever technology is being talked about is at a very initial phase. So that means it will take years to do that. But why countries are pushing hydrogen as a clean energy right now is probably to distract discussion on fossil fuel uh, emissions and abatement of fossil fuels. So then there was another event where financing methane emission abatement technologies have been discussed. So countries have signed. And then there was a high-level dialogue on electrifying cooking. Now, cooking has been identified as one of the carbon emission areas, especially household air pollution is happening because of that, and women who cook food everyday basis, they are impacted by this household air pollution. So now cooking has been identified for electrification. So instead of gas, instead of any other method, a kerosene, wood method, or even a wood, So this dialogue arrived at a conclusion that electrifying cooking is the best method. But then, when you are talking of electrification, I think of cooking, unlike vehicles, I think a lot of changes are including lifestyle changes, diet changes, food change. I think it's not just going to be replacing a gas stove with a electric stove. So there are inherent issues in that, but I'm not sure if everything has been discussed there. But this is again being promoted as a solution and as a just transition. So transition being discussed as justiciable. So this is being pushed as a just transition to net zero. That means social groups who are impacted are going to be addressed as part of this. That is women. But the impact of shifting in the cooking from gas stove to electric cooking can impact women as well in negatively. We'll go into that again and again later. Then yesterday was again Indigenous Peoples Day, and a lot of events happened, uh, basically involving indigenous peoples organizations. But we can notice that, unlike in the last 4 or 5 days, where high global personalities participated in that, and even yesterday as part of energy transition, again big names were there involved in the event. In this Indigenous Peoples Day, Adivasis Day, uh, there are not many prominent personalities could be seen. So it was just an event being done as if it's a ritualistic kind of mention towards Adivasi or indigenous people. So and then they are declaring some mobilization of $200 million for a 80-year period on biodiversity and climate finance, with 85% reaching indigenous territories and local communities. Again, this is just probably a beginning, but it looks very pittance, and it also indicates a lack of attention towards this. In fact, all the forest areas which are identified as carbon sinks has these indigenous people. So, if at all climate action coming from COP-28 thinks that forests are a solution to carbon emissions, climate emergencies, I think the custodians of those forests, indigenous people, need to be targeted and focused upon. But we can see that that attention is not at a level where you can push forests or forestation as a solution. As I mentioned, there was a global cooling pledge which was signed yesterday. So, importantly, this pledge has been included in the nine other declarations. So, COP-28 is giving a lot of importance to this global cooling pledge. And this pledge, as I mentioned, it wants to reduce emissions, improve energy efficiency, and increasing access to sustainable cooling for the vulnerable. Now, this again is an important aspect which we need to sustainable cooling for the vulnerable. We know heat waves are increasing. Average Earth temperature has increased, so the planet is warming up. So many areas, tropical areas, the heat and the temperatures are very high, which impacts the poor people who become vulnerable for heat wave deaths. So this pledge is saying they want to increase access to sustainable cooling. Now I looked at some of the how they are going to increase this access. So either they are talking of refrigerators and so consumable goods are being discussed. Of course, UNEP report on cooling, it talks about passive cooling. Passive cooling means changing some building codes or lining homes with material where the heat does not come in. So some measures like that. In fact, Telangana has also declared a cooling policy. And again, that cooling policy talks about painting the buildings white, something like that. So I think this cooling, which is very, very important because as the earth temperature increases, people will start buying refrigerators or air conditioners to cool themselves. But that is they will run only if there is electricity. And if the temperatures raise beyond 50, 55 degrees, even those power plants may not run. They need to be shut down because the heat will be excessive. So thermal you cannot do. Even nuclear energy will be affected. So ultimately, if you have a renewable energy capacity, only then you can, that too decentralized renewable energy. Because if you have a centralized renewable energy running on power lines, so the heat could affect the power lines also, the efficiency will go down. So decentralized power production at your home or over near your home, I think only that can give us electricity to cool the home, to cool the conditions in which we live. But then the other part, the more active cooling is creating water bodies, protecting wetlands. So lakes, tanks, these kind of, uh, land and water interaction can also cool the atmosphere. And then, forests, open areas, so tree-lined areas. So all these are going to have non-intensive energy cooling effects. But the ultimate problem is these are not discussed at all. And the cooling pledge is focusing on electrified gadgets and a few measures on focusing on buildings and commercial complexes. So even though the wording says increasing access to sustainable cooling for the vulnerable, there is no idea or solution on the table which addresses how this access will be increased. Oh, this alliance we have heard on December 1st when USA has said we are promoting this. Uh, so this is a coalition of national and subnational governments, businesses, and organizations working to advance transition from unabated coal power generation to clean energy. So basically, this alliance is about phasing out or reduction and coal as a fuel. Uh, and nine countries have so far new countries signed up in COP-28. Apart from Malta, Malta is a African country, so they phased out coal power in 1996, way back almost 30 years back. So this alliance has now 59 countries, which includes US, Czech Republic, Cyprus, Dominican Republic, Iceland, Kosovo, and Norway. Now, Norway is a major oil economy, oil-based economy. US is also a oil economy, oil and gas economy. Now, these countries are pushing for a powering past coal alliance, not powering past oil alliance. They could have named it as a oil alliance, powering past oil alliance because that is their economy. So instead, now they are targeting coal simply because, again, they don't want any discussion on themselves, but they are pushing for action on other countries. So this alliance does not include India and Indonesia, Australia, South Africa. So these are all dependent on coal, and they are very fidgety or very sensitive to discussion on coal phase out. So these countries, US or Norway, who are benefiting, continuously benefiting and investing and reinvesting in oil production, they are talking about powering past coal. So this shows that there are politics behind what is happening in COP-28, and those politics are again and again about maintaining power or retaining power or getting new power. So this, I think we need to understand very clearly. So whatever is happening in COP before and after and maybe in future, it will be mostly on politics, not on science, not on passion, not on people, not on social groups, but it is about people, business, wealth, and power. So this alliance was formed, after COP-23. So again, COP-21 was where a Paris Agreement was signed, and then later this COP-23. After that, this alliance came about. So this is another, information which points out the double standards of US. Of course, every country is pushing that double standard. So they are saying, if you can see, we are on a pathway to keep 1.5 degree alive. This is John Kerry, who is a US climate representative. He says the bigger problem is 550 gigawatts or so of coal-fired power that is unabated, that is coming in Asia. So what we need to do is find a way to accelerate everyone's transition. So this is what John Kerry is calling for. But then, if you look at the data from US oil production is also at a record high with output of 13.21 million barrels a day in September. And it is now producing more oil than any country in history, even as OPEC countries have reduced their supply in a bid to bolster prices. So OPEC reduced the supply just to increase the prices, but still US is continuously producing more and more oil. So they are producing more oil, and oil has been identified as one of the fossil fuels, for causing carbon emission. But US is talking about coal simply because it is they are not dependent on them. So this hollowed approach and dichotomous approach is pretty clear with the industrialized countries. Now, these are the kind of rooms where negotiations are happening. You can see they are discussing rules and modalities for Article 6.4 mechanism. So you can see the uh, uh, all the facilities there and how all the delegates are huddled and discussing what is happening. Coming to different views, Director General uh, of World Trade Organization was there, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She was appointed recently, I think about 1-2 years back, and she was there in Dubai. As I mentioned yesterday, also these in a UN organizations are there. Of course, WTO is not a UN organization, so they are there about trade. So yesterday, day before, it was a trade day, and there were several events on trade. But so she is suggesting to prioritize trade policy in the fight against global warming. Now, this is again important because as she highlighted the concerns from less developed WTO members regarding European Union's carbon border tax. So, European Union is now imposing a carbon border adjustment mechanism tax CBAM. It has targeted steel and some other sector initially, and maybe by 2025, this adjustment mechanism will be applied to different sectors. So all the imports into European Union, they have to declare the carbon offsets which have been taken up as part of that product. Otherwise, they have to pay something like that. So in fact, India has, to avoid the paying to European Union, India has now created a green credit program because we export a lot of steel to Europe. So these kind of issues, WTO Director General is raising. So she is saying we need to facilitate dialogue to address potential trade frictions. So more trade frictions can develop as COP-28 or COP related agreements or clauses kick in. So I think WTO is going to become again a platform for such discussions. Now there is this guy, Bezos, Andrew Steer from Bezos Earth Fund. Jeff Bezos, who is the Amazon chief. So they have a Earth Fund, and the CEO of that Earth Fund is saying we have to work hard over the next 8 years. That means until 2030 to move the ratio of power that is generated by coal from the current 36% to less than 4%. So this is a target this international NGO is giving to developing countries like China, India, Indonesia, and South Africa. So they're saying we need to reduce from 36% to 4%. In fact, for India, it is not 36%. This is global. For India, it is 47%. So it means we have to reduce very hard if this goal becomes a uh, part of the COP agreements. So UAE is joined Powering Past Coal Alliance. So yesterday they did that. Interestingly, this was not part of the COP event, but Bill Gates is there for the past 3-4 days. I think he'll be there today as well. So Bill Gates has a nuclear reactor company, Terra Power company, and they entered into a deal with United Arab Emirates nuclear company, ENEC. So they have agreed to study the potential development of advanced reactors in the UAE and abroad. So Bill, Bill Gates again, because he's a technopreneur who makes mints crores out of technologies, false technology solutions. He is now peddling a advanced nuclear reactor. So they are doing research on that, and he says they are going to come up with a reactor which addresses the current concerns of waste, a lot of issues within the nuclear energy. So the memorandum of understanding comes amid a push by the UAE to expand its nuclear energy capacity. So UAE has a small nuclear power plant. I believe it was inaugurated in 2020, just 3 years back. So this is the latest player in the nuclear energy, and they want to expand their nuclear energy capacity. Nuclear energy eventually is related to war, weapons. So there is another dimension to the nuclear energy. So again, there are politics involved in that, especially with Israel and the Arab nations, which are supporting Palestinians. In the past, we have seen Iran nuclear program has been targeted by Israel and USA. So now you need to see if UAE gets that approval from this nuclear club, even though the UAE is saying it is only for energy, but the process to fuel from nuclear energy is the best suited for weapons, war weapons. No one throws it away just like that. There was this news, yesterday, as we talked about, fossil fuel lobbies are there in COP-28. So in Glasgow, they identified 500, but here in COP-28, there are 2,456 fossil fuel lobbies, and that is 400% increase since last year. So the increase in role, increasing intervention of companies or lobbies who, on behalf of fossil fuel companies, is increasing, and that's why many people are they don't have any faith in a good outcome from COP-28. And here we can see already 2,456 are there. And in the last 1 week, at least 6 days, you could see that how the debate is being channelized gradually into something away from the fossil fuel debate. But then they could not avoid, and I think still fossil fuel uh, phase out is still on the table. They just cannot brush it aside because the science is there, and a lot of the texts on fossil fuel phase out, has been there since 10, 15 years. And one company, Geneva, a coalition of this, fossil fuel lobby, they brought 116 people. I think some countries, they do not have so many lobbies, as I mentioned earlier also. So 10 most climate vulnerable countries combined are lesser than these fossil fuel lobbies. Again, you can see the strength and the power of these people in capturing the international forums where these critical issues are being discussed. So now there is a campaign going on. It's called Kick Big Polluters Out. So that's what the campaign is about. Now there are negotiation texts. In fact, this has increased to 67. 53 were there, but today 67, it has increased to 67. And Interestingly, one negotiator, it seems he has remarked, everyone is in the dark on the process for the second week. So what happens in the second week? Because today on 6th of December, most of the texts have to be handed over to the COP-28 presidency. So this presidency then they'll take the text, and then what happens later until the end of the COP-28 is not clear. So that's what a negotiator is saying. Even for me, as a distant observer, even I don't understand how from what the presidency does to those texts which are coming out of subsidiary bodies. So the process becomes a little bit unclear. So that means that the presidency gets power to work on those texts. Now, if anyone believes, this is a democratic process, you can see it happened until now. But next week, probably it will be decided by the UAE. And again, given that fossil fuel lobbies are crowding there, one would only wonder what happens to those texts which are discussed with a great effort and pain. Energy was a key theme in all the negotiations, especially the fossil fuel phase out. So today, on 6th December, they have to hand over the conclusions. So probably some groups have already been sitting in the last night as well. So the discussions on just transition, how do you make the transition pathway, just and equitable? I think they are not arrived at a meaningful consensus. So they had informal consultation. So if you look at the double usage of informal, it only means they are just chatting maybe around drinking tea or something like that. So that kind of informal consultations are happening. So that next week they are going to forward the text to ministers. So the same efforts are seen with global stock tech. Now, this COP, there is a lot of hopes on global stock tech related outcome as also mitigation and adaptation. So, but still, they are not yet arrived at a consensus. So the task of is on the global stock take, they developed I think some 29 options. So they are discussing 29 to 30, 40 options with regard to the text, and there no consensus on that. So this is again a typical stage where there will be, for every negotiating text, there will be two facilitators. They are called co-facilitators. And on the left and right, there are secretariat. This is UNFCCC secretariat staff will be there who will help these co-facilitators. So this is the text which has come out as part of global stock take. So you can see option one, option two, then option one, option two. So all option twos are no text. No text means there is nothing which has been given. So that means you can remove that completely. You can see first one, tripling nuclear energy capacity globally by 2030 compared to 2011 to 11,000 gigawatt. This was part of the pledge, which exactly the same word. And so this is one option being given as part of global stock take. And there is option two. Similarly, on zero emission technologies, there is option. if you look at the C point, it says option one, an orderly and just phase out of fossil fuels. This is option one. Then accelerating towards phasing out unabated fossil fuels and to rapidly reduce their usage to achieve net zero in energy systems by or around mid-century, that is 2050. And there is option three, no text. So from a simple text, line of orderly and just phase out of fuels, and there is another option. Similarly, in D, you find about coal power. So these are all options developed by this negotiation text, and the delegates are going to struggle it out on what is the best everyone can agree upon. So again, you can see phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. So everyone is excited that this text has come because until now it was not there, and yesterday it came. So today they are going to discuss this threadbare. So again, this is on just on equity within the global stock trade. So I thought, option one, option two, option three. Option two would be far better because it says equity is complex and multidimensional as parties have different national circumstances and capabilities to contribute, and their contribution toward achieving goals are nationally determined. And also notes that human rights based inclusive approaches can lead to better climate outcomes and enable more ambitious climate action and policies. I thought this option two gives scope for decision happening at a national level because each country has its different circumstances. We have Adivasis, we have Dalits, we have rural versus urban, and within urban we have poor and rich, and then women. So these circumstances are again different from what is in the United Kingdom or in United States or in European Union or even Thailand, Malaysia. So each country has a different circumstances. I felt, the option two might be better, but again, we need to see how the delegates are going to come up with, what they are going to come up with. So there are a number of studies, reports again. So yesterday, a new study finds that planted forests with mixed tree species stored 70% more carbon. Usually now, because people either due to carbon credits or even before that, like in Telangana, Haritaharam, mono plantations, single species plantations are being promoted in acres and acres. But they do not store carbon as much as multiple mixed tree species is what this study is saying. So the study is recommending that we need forests, not plantations. So we need diversified forests, and only then they can act as efficient carbon sinks. So this, I think, we need to understand very clearly. Now, this Global Cooling Watch report, which was released by UNEP along with when they signed a global pledge, I can say they are suggesting passive cooling, higher energy efficiency standard, faster phase down of climate warming refrigerants. This is about hydrochlorofluorocarbons, HCFCs. But and as I mentioned, they are looking at passive cooling is about changing building code and some other such, such things, which are still based on electricity intensive ideas and solutions. But they are not talking of lakes, they are not talking of forests, they are not talking of trees, they are not talking of open areas. All these are part of the cooling options. Now there, there is this green zone, but someone has pointed out that a green zone, authorities have not still clarified whether demonstrations can happen there. So since there are at least 80,000 activists there, the restrictions are there, and people are concerned about it. Now, Indian Environment Secretary, she claimed, that we have decoupled emissions from economic growth. Again, I don't know how it was done, and she did not give any study or independent third-party data to back whatever she's claiming. But she's claiming India has achieved 33% reduction in emission intensity of GDP in 2019 itself. Now, if they have achieved so much, even without coal reduction in coal usage, I don't know why India is very fidgety about phasing out coal. So this claim and then the that cringing over the coal phase out, they do not match. So I don't know how government of India tries to address this issue. There are number of events today. Though on December 11 and 12 there will be no thematic events, but today there are 95 events scheduled, and there is a ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change as well. So today a lot of discussion will be on urbanization, cities, and related issues. And also there is a parliamentary bodies meeting also. So a lot of parliament members from different countries are likely to be there to discuss parliamentarian role in climate action. So this is being organized by International Inter-Parliamentary Union and another organization. So again, today we'll see what they are going to discuss today on this. So these are a few demonstrations which looked very organized, not unlike what we have seen in earlier COPs, but still better than what has happened in Egypt. So these are civil society activists who are trying to influence the negotiators on different issues. Again, you can see they are sitting on the floor and discussing whatever strategies. Here is, this is the guide to the venue and the rooms. So I'll stop here and then I'll just do a small translation in Telugu about what happened yesterday in Dubai. నిన్న 5వ తారీఖు నాడు 5 డిసెంబర్ నాడు దుబాయ్లో చాలా కార్యక్రమాలు జరిగాయి. దాంతోపాటు ఏవైతే చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయో ఒక 67 ప్రతుల మీద చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి. అంటే 67 రూమ్లు ఉన్నాయి. గదుల్లో 67 రకాల ప్రతుల మీద చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి. అవి ఈరోజు 6 డిసెంబర్ నాటికి పూర్తి కావాలి. ఇవి ఈరోజు సాయంత్రానికి కాప్ ప్రెసిడెంట్కి అవి అందజేస్తారు. అంటే వాళ్ళు ఏమి నిర్ణయించుకున్నారు అనేది అందజేస్తారు. ఒకవేళ ఏ నిర్ణయం జరగకుండా దాన్ని ఒక ముసాయిదా రూపంలో ఇస్తారు. ఎందుకు అంగీకరించారు అవన్నీ ఉంటాయి. అయితే ఇవి కాప్ ప్రెసిడెంట్కి అందజేసినాక వచ్చే వారం వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారనేది ఈ ఈ చర్చల్లో పాల్గొంటున్న వారికే తెలియదని నిన్న మనం చూస్తే సమాచారం ఎవరో అంటున్నారు. ఏమవుతుంది తర్వాత ఈ ప్రతులను ఆ ప్రెసిడెంట్కి ఇచ్చినాక ఏమవుతుంది, ప్రెసిడెన్సీ అంటే యుఏఈ ఏదైతే దుబాయ్ దేశం వాళ్ళ టీం దాన్ని చూసి మరి వాళ్ళు యుఎన్ఎఫ్సిసి కలిసి దాన్ని ఏం చేస్తారు అనేది మనము చాలా మందికి తెలియదు. అది దాని మీద సందిగ్ధత ఉంది, అనుమానాలు ఉన్నాయి. ఎందుకంటే COP-28 ప్రెసిడెన్సీ మీద ఇప్పటికే చాలా ఆరోపణలు వచ్చాయి. ఎందుకంటే ఆయన ఆయిల్ కంపెనీ ప్రతినిధిగా మాట్లాడుతున్నాడని. అది మనం చూసాం కూడా. ఈ 5 రోజుల సమావేశాల్లో భాగంగా కూడా దాదాపు 2456 ఆయిల్ కంపెనీ ప్రతినిధులు ఈ COP-28కి వచ్చారనేది ఒక సంస్థ చేసిన సర్వే ప్రకారం తెలుస్తుంది. ఇది పోయిన సంవత్సరం ఈజిప్ట్ కాప్ కంటే 400% ఎక్కువ. అంటే వాళ్ళ సంఖ్య 400% ఎక్కువ. అంతకుముందు గ్లాస్గో కంటే అది ఇంకా బహుశా 1000% ఎక్కువ ఉండొచ్చు. ఎందుకంటే అప్పుడు 400 ఉంటేనే పెద్ద రభస అయింది. కానీ ఇప్పుడు 2456 మంది ఆయిల్ కంపెనీ ప్రతినిధులు అక్కడ ఏం చేస్తున్నారు అనేది మన ముందు ఉన్న ప్రశ్న. ఎందుకంటే ఈ ఈ సంఖ్య చూస్తే ఈ మన వాతావరణ మార్పుల వలన ప్రకృతి వైపరీత్యాల బారిన పడ్డ దేశాలు ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో ఒక 10 దేశాల ప్రతినిధులని సంఖ్యకి కంటే ఇది చాలా ఎక్కువ. అంటే అక్కడ ఎవరు ఉండాలి? దేశాలు ఉండాలి. దేశాల ప్రతినిధులు ఉండాలి. ఎందుకంటే వాళ్ళ సమస్యలు సమస్యలకు పరిష్కారం అక్కడ చర్చిస్తున్నారు. కానీ వీళ్ళకంటే ఎక్కువ ఆ కంపెనీ ప్రతినిధులు ఉన్నారనేది మనం గమనించాం. కేవలం ఆయిల్ కంపెనీ ప్రతినిధులే కాదు, ఇంకా వేరే అనేక రకాల కంపెనీలు నిన్ననే మనం మాట్లాడుకున్నాం. దాదాపు 8 ఏళ్ళ నుంచి 10,000 మంది ఈ కంపెనీ ప్రతినిధులే. ఆ, వే దాదాపు 1200 కంపెనీలు కూడా అక్కడ ఉన్నాయి. అంటే ఇది అన్ని కార్పొరేటీకరణ జరుగుతుంది. కార్పొరేట్లకు అనుకూలమైన పరిష్కారాలు దిశగా ఈ కాప్ సమావేశాలు వెళ్తున్నాయనే అనుమానము ఈ ఈ ఈ పరిణామాలు మనకు బల బలపరుస్తున్నాయి. ఆ అనుమానాలను బలపరిచే చర్యలు అక్కడ కనపడుతున్నాయి. అయితే నిన్న ఎనర్జీ శక్తి వనరుల మీద, తర్వాత ఆ, ఒక అది సామాజిక న్యాయపరంగా ఆ, దాని మీద చర్చలు, తర్వాత ఆదివాసీ ప్రజల గురించి కూడా కొన్ని ఈవెంట్స్ ఉన్నాయన్నారు. కానీ ఆదివాసీ వాళ్ళ సమావేశాలు జరిగాయి కానీ అక్కడ ఆ, పెద్ద పేరున్న నాయకులు కానీ వాళ్ళు ఎవరు లేరు. ఏదో 2-3 మొక్కుబడిగా సమావేశాలు నిర్వహించినట్టు కనపడుతుంది. కానీ ఎక్కువ శాతము నిన్న కూడా ఆ, కంపెనీలు వాళ్ళకి అవసరమైన టెక్నాలజీల మీద చర్చ జరిగింది. అసలు 5-6 ఈవెంట్స్ చూస్తే ఈ మన క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్ సమస్యలకు పరిష్కారాలు టెక్నాలజీ ద్వారానే తీర్చగలుగుతామనే ఆ, ఒక నమ్మకము కలిగించే విధంగా ఈ సమావేశాలు జరిగాయి. అందులో ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్, బిగ్ డేటా ఇవన్నీ కూడా తీసుకొచ్చే ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నారు. అందులో బిల్ గేట్స్ ఇప్పుడు గత 4-5 రోజులుగా బిల్ గేట్స్ అక్కడే ఉన్నాడు. టెక్నాలజీ అంటే చాలా మందికి బిల్ గేట్స్ గుర్తొస్తారు. ఈ టెక్నాలజీ ద్వారా ఆయన టెక్నాలజీ వ్యాపారం చేస్తున్నట్టు మనకు తెలిసిందే. ఆయన ప్రమోట్ చేసే టెక్నాలజీలు, కంపెనీలు, వాళ్ళు పెట్టుబడి పెట్టిన కంపెనీలు, వాళ్ళందరూ కూడా నిన్న మీటింగ్లు పెట్టుకొని ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ ఎట్లా వాడతాము, బిగ్ డేటా ఎట్లా వాడతాము, డిజిటల్ ఎట్లా వాడతాము, దీని ద్వారా ఏ సమస్యకి ఏం పరిష్కారం చేయగలుగుతాము అనేది వాళ్ళు నిన్న చర్చించడం జరిగింది. తర్వాత ఇంపార్టెంట్గా కూలింగ్ ప్లేట్స్. ఇప్పుడు వాతావరణం వేడి పెరుగుతుంది, ఆ, ఆ, పుడమి ఉష్ణోగ్రత పెరుగుతున్న సందర్భంలో వేడి పెరిగిన కొద్దీ మనము జీవించడానికి, మన జీవనానికి కూలింగ్ అవసరం అవుతుంది. సో ఇప్పటికే ఎయిర్ కండిషనర్లు, రెఫ్రిజిరేటర్ల అమ్మకాలు పెరిగినాయి మొత్తం ప్రపంచం అంతటా. ప్రత్యేకంగా మన అలాంటి దేశంలో ఎక్కడైతే ట్రాపికల్ దేశం ఉంటుందో ఇక్కడ మనకు 50 డిగ్రీలు సాధారణమే. మనం 50 డిగ్రీలు. సో ఇక్కడ కూడా ఎయిర్ కండిషనర్లు, రెఫ్రిజిరేటర్లు పెరుగుతాయి. సో వీటన్నిటికి సంబంధించి ఒక ప్రతిజ్ఞ నిన్న తీసుకున్నారు. అది ఎందుకంటే యునైటెడ్ నేషన్స్ ఎన్వైరన్మెంట్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ వాళ్ళు ఒక రిపోర్ట్ ఇచ్చారు. ఈ కూలింగ్ కొరకు ఎన్ని ఎంత శాతము, ఎవరు ఎంత కొంటారు, ఇవన్నీ వాళ్ళు ఒక అంచనా తీసుకొచ్చారు. వాళ్ళ వాళ్ళు దానికి కొన్ని పరిష్కారాలు కూడా సూచించారు. కాకపోతే ఆ పరిష్కారాల్లో భాగంగా ప్యాసివ్ కూలింగ్ అంటారు. ప్యాసివ్ అంటే ఈ పరికరాలు కాకుండా, ఈ రెఫ్రిజిరేటర్లు ఇవి కాకుండా వేరే విధంగా ఎట్లయితే షేడ్స్ పెట్టడము, ఇది బిల్డింగ్‌కి తర్వాత లైనింగ్ చేయడం. ఇప్పుడు కొన్ని చోట్ల ఇది కిటికీలకి లైనింగ్ చేయడం. ఇట్లాంటియన్నీ పాసివ్ కూలింగ్ కింద వస్తాయి. వాటి గురించి మొదట ప్రస్తావిస్తూ తర్వాత రెఫ్రిజిరేషన్, ఎయిర్ కండిషనింగ్ గురించి మాట్లాడారు. ఇవన్నీ ఎలక్ట్రిఫికేషన్ చేస్తే బాగుంటది. ఎఫిషియంట్‌గా ఉంటదని వాళ్ళు చెప్పడం జరిగింది. ఆ రిపోర్టు మనము పూర్తిగా చదివితే ఇంకా మనకు లోతుల్లో అర్థమయ్యే పరిస్థితి ఉంది. కాకపోతే నేననేది, మీరు కూలింగ్ అన్నప్పుడు మనము చేయాల్సింది పాసివ్ కూలింగ్ ఏందంటే, ఇప్పుడు తెలంగాణ కూలింగ్ పాలసీ ఆహ్, కూల్ రూఫ్ పాలసీ వచ్చింది. ఏది 1½ ఇయర్ బ్యాక్. అంటే ఈళ్ళేమన్నారు, బిల్డింగ్‌ల మీద ఒక ఒక రకమైన పెయింటేస్తే అది ఆ ఎండ రిఫ్లెక్ట్ అయ్యి ఆ బిల్డింగ్ కూల్ అయితదని. కానీ ఆ బిల్డింగ్ మెటీరియల్ గురించి గానీ, అంటే సిమెంట్ బదులు మనం సున్నం వాడొచ్చా? మట్టి వాడొచ్చా? ఇట్లాంటి వాటి మీద చర్చ లేదు. ఇది గాక నేను ఆనాడే జెప్పాను. మనం కూల్ గావాలంటే క్లైమేట్‌ని మార్చాలంటే మనకు చెరువులున్నాయి, నదులున్నాయి, వాగులున్నాయి, కాలువలున్నాయి, చెక్ డ్యామ్స్ ఉన్నాయి. వీటిని మనం ఎక్కువ పెంచుకుంటే, వాటిని కాలుష్యం గాకుండా, వాటిని సహజంగా మెయింటైన్ చేస్తే ఆ ప్రాంతంలో కూలింగ్ ఉంటది. ఇప్పుడు హైదరాబాద్‌లో మనం చూసాము జియో 111 దగ్గర హిమాయత్ సాగర్ గాని, ఉస్మాన్ సాగర్ గాని, ఆ చుట్టుపక్కల చల్లగుంటదని అక్కడ ఇల్లు కట్టుకుంటున్నారు. దాని డిమాండ్ గూడా అందుకే ఉంది. చెరువు పక్కన ఉంటే మనకు వాతావరణం బాగుంటుందని తెలుసు. కానీ ఇటువంటి పరిష్కారాలు ఈ రిపోర్ట్‌లో లేవు. నిన్న చర్చలో గూడా జరగలేదు. అదిగాక చెట్లు పెంచితే ఇప్పుడు ఒక వేప చెట్టు కింద ఉంటే చాలా చల్లగా ఉంటది గాలి. మరి చెట్లు పెంచడము, ఏ చెట్టు పెంచితే ఎంత కూలింగ్ ఉంటది. తర్వాత అడవులు పెంపుదల, దాంతో పాటు ఇప్పుడు ఆ పట్టణ ప్రాంతాల్లో ఓపెన్ ఏరియాస్ ఉండాలి. అంటే గాలి బిల్డింగ్ పక్కన బిల్డింగు దగ్గర దగ్గర కడితే కూడా వేడి పెరుగుతుంది. సో, ఆ గాలి ప్రసరణ ఉండేటట్టు ఓపెన్ ఏరియా ఉండాలి. ప్లే గ్రౌండ్‌లు ఇవన్నీ గూడా అంటే ల్యాండ్ యూజ్ పాలిసీ గురించి, భూమి వినియోగ పద్ధతి గురించి కూడా మేము సూచించడం జరిగింది. కానీ అంతర్జాతీయంగా గూడా ఇట్లా ఆలోచనలు లేవు. కేవలం ఆ టెక్నాలజీ, ఈ టెక్నాలజీ పెట్టి ఈ కంపెనీ, ఆ కంపెనీ వీటిని ప్రమోట్ చేసే ఆలోచనలు ఉన్నాయి తప్పితే, సస్టైనబుల్ అంటే సుస్థిర పరిష్కారాల మీద ఆలోచనలు అక్కడ లేవనేది మనకు అర్థమవుతుంది. సో, నిన్న గ్లోబల్ కూలింగ్ ప్లాన్‌లో యూనెప్ వాళ్ళు చర్చించినయి అట్లాంటి అంశాలొచ్చాయి. ఇక చర్చ ప్రతుల గురించొస్తే దాదాపు 67 గురించి చర్చ ఉంది గానీ, అందులో గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ మీద నిన్న ఒక కొత్త ప్రతులొచ్చాయి. అందులో ఆప్షన్స్ ఇచ్చారు. అంటే ఒక్కొక్క అంశానికి ఒక 3, 4 ఆప్షన్స్ ఇచ్చారు. అందులో ఇప్పుడు కోల్ ఫేజ్ ఔట్ అంటే శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను తగ్గించుకోవడానికి ఇది డిసెంబర్ 1 నాడు ఒక 119 దేశాలు సంతకం చేసిన ప్రతిజ్ఞ ఉందో, అందులో ఉన్నదే ఇది గ్లోబల్ టేక్‌లో ఒక ఆప్షన్‌గా పెట్టారు. అయితే ఇట్లాంటిది అంటే ఫాసిల్ ఫ్యూయల్ ఫేజ్ ఔట్, శిలాజ ఇంధనాలు అన్నిటినీ కూడా తగ్గించడం అనేది ఒకటైతే బొగ్గు తగ్గించడం మీద కూడా ఇంకొక ఆప్షన్ ఇచ్చింది. సో ఇట్లాంటి ఆప్షన్స్ 1, 2, 3 లేదా దాన్ని కంప్లీట్గా తీసేయడానికి నో టెక్స్ట్ అని ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది. వీటన్నిటి మీద ఈరోజు చర్చించి ఒక తుది రూపానికి తీసుకొచ్చే ప్రయత్నము చాలా పెద్ద ఎత్తున చేస్తున్నట్టు కనపడుతుంది. అంగీకారం లేని విషయాల మీద ఇన్ఫార్మల్గా చర్చలు జరుపుకుంటున్నారు. అందులో ఇన్ఫార్మల్ అంటారు. అంటే చాయ్ తాగుకుంటానో ఏదో చేసుకుంటా కూడా చర్చించి ఎవరైతే వైరుధ్యాలు వివాదాలు ఉన్నాయో వాటి మీద ఒక తుది రూపానికి ఒక ఏకాభిప్రాయానికి వచ్చే విధంగా ఈరోజు జరుగుతాయి. అయితే చివరిగా భారతదేశము భారతదేశానికి చెందిన పర్యావరణ శాఖ సెక్రటరీ కార్యదర్శి ఆమె అక్కడ మొన్న చేసిన ప్రకటన భారత దేశ ఆర్థిక అభివృద్ధిని ఈ ఉద్గారాల నుంచి మేము వేరు చేశాము అని ఆమె ప్రకటించింది. ఎట్లా చేశారు, ఏం చేశారు, మేము ఇక్కడ ఉన్న వాళ్ళకి నాకే అర్థం కాలేదు. ఇక రెండవది మేము దాదాపు 33% 2019లోనే ఉద్గారాలు తగ్గించామని చెప్పింది ఆమె. దానికి సంబంధించి ఏమైనా అధ్యయనం చేశారా, లేకుంటే థర్డ్ పార్టీ ప్రభుత్వం కాకుండా ఎవరైనా చేశారా అనేది మనకు తెలియదు. అంటే దాని రుజువులు అయితే మనకు కనపడలేదు. ఆమె ఒక ప్రెస్ కాన్ఫరెన్స్లో ఆ విషయం చెప్పింది. నేనేమంటున్నా, ఇప్పుడు మీరు బొగ్గు వాడకము తగ్గించకుండా 33% ఉద్గారాలు తగ్గించిన సామర్థ్యం ఉన్నప్పుడు మరి బొగ్గు వాడకము తగ్గిస్తే మన జీడిపి మీద, మన ఆర్థిక ప్రగతి మీద ప్రభావం ఉంటుందని మరి ఎట్లా అంటారు? అది లేకుండా తగ్గించినప్పుడు అది అంటే దాని గురించి ఏం చేయకుండా తగ్గించినప్పుడు దాన్ని తగ్గిస్తే ఇంకా మనం వేగంగా తగ్గించుకుంటాం కదా. ఈ ప్రశ్నకి జవాబు వస్తుందో లేదో తెలియదు. కానీ మనం నిన్న చూసాము ఎమిషన్స్, మనము రిపోర్ట్స్, ఎమిషన్ గ్యాప్స్ కానీ ఇవన్నీ చూస్తే భారతదేశం నుంచి కోల్ కానీ ఆయిల్ కానీ ఈ ఎమిషన్స్ పెరుగుతున్నాయి. ఈ 2023లో ఇంకొక 8% పెరుగుతుందని ఒక అధ్యయనం చెప్తుంది. సరే, ఆ అధ్యయనము విధి విధానాలు దానికి ఉన్న ఇంటిగ్రిటీ ఏందనేది అది అంతర్జాతీయ సంస్థ చేస్తుంది. అది అంటే 120 శాస్త్రవేత్తలు కలిసి చేసింది. అది పక్కన పెడితే మీరు పెరుగుతున్నట్టు మనం చూస్తున్నాము. ఢిల్లీలో, బాంబేలో, హైదరాబాద్లో, చెన్నైలో అంతటా చూస్తున్నాం. మరి కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వము ఎట్లాంటి నిర్దిష్ట చర్యలు తీసుకుంటుంది? ఇది తీసుకోవడానికి సంప్రదింపులు ఏమన్నా చేస్తున్నారా? మరి భారతదేశం లాంటి పెద్ద దేశంలో నిపుణులు లేరా? మీరు కేవలం పర్యావరణ మంత్రిత్వ శాఖలో ఉన్న కన్సల్టెంట్లతోటే ఈ వాతావరణ మార్పులకు పరిష్కారాలు తయారు చేసుకుంటారా? ఇవన్నీ మన ముందున్న ప్రశ్నలు, మనం అడగాల్సిన ప్రశ్నలు. అవన్నీ మళ్ళీ మాట్లాడుకుందాం రేపు. ఈ రోజుకి ఈ సమీక్ష ముగిస్తుంది. మళ్ళీ రేపు కలుసుకుందాం. ధన్యవాదాలు.